Well, hello and welcome to a snowy Monday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Aalders. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Hope that the snow clearing efforts in your yard are well underway. It's that heavy stuff too this morning, right? It's not like it's that really sloppy heart attack snow, but it's not the light fluffy stuff either. So I know that there are many people out there that are digging out this morning, and some in HRM are getting a little extra help today because there were a couple of schools that closed their doors for the day today in the outlying areas, and then there was a 2-hour delay for the others as the snow clearing efforts get underway to get those schools open and safe. The long-term or the short-term forecast is calling for a bit of a change, and it's going to get a bit warm. So I'm going to suggest that there's going to be several people out there, and I can hold my hand up here and say that I'm probably one of them that will hope for Mother Nature to do her work and melt some of this stuff away before we get our next dump of snow. Our newly minted meteorologist, Allister Aalders, will be joining us here in hour number 3 today to give us a little bit of the data on this latest storm. I think this one might have caught some in HRM off guard because we weren't expecting, I don't think, to see this much accumulation. But we will, of course, bring Allister on, get the stats on the storm and what we can expect moving forward. We can't go any further in the show without sending our thoughts and our prayers to Australia today and that tragic shooting on Bondi Beach. 15 people now have died from injuries sustained in that mass shooting. Australia has some of the toughest gun control laws on the planet, and yet this still happened. And I know there will be a lot of discussion and a lot of debate over the next few days as to why and the motivation behind it, but it's not lost on me the human tragedy of losing 15 people who were just attending a religious gathering. It's nonsensical to me. Anyway, our thoughts to all affected in Australia and also to those affected by that shooting in Rhode Island at Brown University. That one a little closer to home. 2 dead there, 9 more wounded in the latest school shooting in the United States. So lots of violence this weekend, and of course the big talker today, the subject that is dominating our water cooler here at work is the tragedy that is Rob Reiner and his wife. Those of you who don't know who Rob Reiner is, director, actor, he's been responsible for some of the movies that you know and love, like This Is Spinal Tap and some more of the serious ones. And, of course, The Princess Bride, and the list goes on. I remember him most as Meathead on All in the Family, and if you're of that vintage, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about there. Anyway, Rob and his wife, Michelle Singer, found stabbed to death in their mansion in California. They have a family member that's being questioned. Just a tragic weekend all the way around. Not a good way to start a Monday. It's no way really to segue into the next segment, so we'll just do it anyway. And it is tradition here on this show, and has been for many years, that the first segment on a Monday morning is Councillors on the hot seat. And joining us today in studio from District 5, that's Dartmouth Centre, and Sam Austin. Sam, how are you?
I'm good. How are you this morning?
I am well. And on the phone today, joining us all the way from District 4, can I say all the way, Trish? That's Trish Purdy, of course.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Good
morning, Dan.
I'm glad you're able to join us, Trish.
Good morning, Sam.
Morning.
Sorry.
I want to get it all out there so nobody feels left out. Cole Harbour, Preston, Westphal, Cherry Brook. I got them all right?
Thank you.
All right. 902-405-6000.
Yep.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Before we get to the phone lines, got to ask you about the week that was when it came to council. You folks were spending, I think, a lot more time at council chambers than you were with your families last week, because we had a regional council meeting, we had a special regional council meeting, we had a budget meeting, and all the committees that are associated with that. Sam, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that special meeting that was held, I think it was it Thursday or Friday? I don't remember anymore.
It was Thursday.
Was it? They all run together.
It was a busy week for us.
They on the regional plan. This one is unique, I guess, to me, because this was a meeting that you had to have and a vote that had to happen, but you kind of already knew what the end was going to be anyway.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. This came about because the province rejected the revised regional plan that we sent along back in the summer. And when they rejected that, we ended up with a whole bunch of housing projects that ended up in limbo as a result. I don't know that they had really thought that all through. So then they had to create a special planning area to cover, or an interim planning area to cover the whole municipality until we could implement the minimum planning requirements that they had stipulated. So going into this on Thursday, I mean, I didn't advertise this to any of my constituents that like, oh, come to the public hearing and offer your input, because the reality is that council didn't have any ability to really say no or do any or deviate at all because we were being dictated to.
Trish, your thoughts on it?
Pretty much the same as Sam's. It was the provincial mandate for some of these changes, and of course needing to pass this for the provincial mandated requirements for our planning. So it was informative, though. I'm glad that we did have the people that came out to speak and to share their thoughts and their suggestions and their recommendations. And I just think it's so important for us to continue to have that ability for the public to have the opportunity to provide feedback.
One of the sections, Trish, of this thing didn't affect Sam's writing too much, but one of the discussions during that special meeting was on short-term rentals in rural areas, and of course you have some of those in your jurisdiction.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the negative things that happened when the province didn't approve our fourth phase of the regional plan is that the short-term rentals in some of these areas kind of were in limbo as well, not just the developments, but our entrepreneurs that are trying to, make a living, provide for their future financially. So that was one of the good things that we got past is the beginning, starting for these folks in some of these areas to be able to offer their one short-term rental per property for folks, because there really aren't options for tourism in some of our remote areas, and so it just really provides a service to folks visiting not only just from outside of Nova Scotia, but people who are doing staycations. It's a popular thing nowadays, and we have such a beautiful province. People want to be able to stay by the ocean, by the trails, not have to travel to and from. So it's good.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255 is the telephone number. Sam, one of the other issues that I hear about with regards to these changes that were passed eventually at that special meeting was the removal of the parking requirement in some of these large developments. Tell me a little bit about what that would mean, for instance, in Dartmouth.
So in my district, it doesn't mean anything at all because we'd already gotten rid of that through the Centre plan. And the idea of parking minimums, it's kind of something that's been increasingly regarded as pretty regressive planning policy because you're mandating space for vehicles when, if someone thinks they can build a building and cater to like people who don't own vehicles, they still have to build those parking spaces. It's not that what we've seen in the Centre plan over the last number of years, because it's been a while now since parking minimums have been gone in Dartmouth and in Halifax, is people still build parking in buildings, but they build it to reflect the market, right? So they're building based on what they think their tenants are going to require. And so now that policy applies across the whole municipality because of those provincial planning minimums. So those apply out in the suburbs too, which is, I still think is a good thing. I think Trish and I will probably disagree on this point, but I do recognize it does land a little differently in the suburbs where alternatives such as active transportation and transit are less appealing than in an urban area like mine.
Over to you, Councillor Purdy.
Thank you. And yeah, Sam is my favorite colleague that I probably disagree with.
Every now and then, Trish. Every now and then we agree.
I know. We celebrate every time. It's wonderful. But yeah, we need parking. I think it is just silly that we don't have minimum parking requirements for our buildings in the suburban areas. I don't see cars going away anytime soon in the suburban areas. We don't have good alternative transportation options for folks, and we see more and more the frustration of street parking and especially in winter times when we have our parking restrictions on for snow clearing. As long as developers do build to the market conditions, I guess that's good. But when there's no oversight, they don't have to. So I just think that it's not reasonable to not have a parking requirement in a suburban area, especially for the big developments. I mean, we're seeing bigger and bigger developments happening, which is kind of unprecedented for our area here in District 4, at least. So concerns, lots of concerns.
If I could throw out
Sure.
the other side of the coin here, in my district, there's recently it's an affordable housing development, right, for its First Nations youth, and under our old rules, had they been in place, they would have been required to have a parking space for each unit in that building. No one there has cars. Like, you're talking people who can't afford vehicles.
Right. On the other side of that coin, though, Sam, I live in a rather apartment-intensive neighborhood, I'll call it, in District 12, and parking there is at a premium, and that forces a number of people to park their vehicles on the streets, because if they have more than one vehicle, there's not enough room for them. A lot of people have two vehicles these days. And when we get into the situation that began today with the winter parking ban, it creates an issue for people where they put their cars, does it not?
It does, and that is very much, if you're renting an apartment building and you have two vehicles and you're only renting one parking space, why does that become the city's problem to then fix your poor decision making, right?
I don't think it's a poor decision. I think that there are many buildings in my neighborhood that each apartment is
but your landlord
one.
has exactly. So
Right?
there's one parking space, and so you need to find a solution, right? Like, the city can't solve the private parking problem.
I get it. But now there may not be any parking spaces in buildings that are developed.
I would suggest to you that a building in the suburbs that has no parking spaces, it will also have no tenants.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. And let's talk about the commercial space, too. That has been a feature. Just take a look around at all the buildings here. There's no longer a requirement for that, Sam. What does that mean for the urban areas?
Yeah, so there's two requirements in the province's planning requirements that I disagree with. The one was unit mix, so that's requirements saying you need a certain percentage of two bedroom, 3 bedroom, 1 bedroom. The province is allowing for a couple of years here buildings to be built, and they could be all just studios. And I don't think that's good for community cohesion. You want to make sure that there's spaces available for families, for multi-generational households. Families come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, and we should be allowing for space in our community that fits all of that. So I don't agree with that.
As long as they've got one car.
As long as they have one car. Touche. So the other side of it is that commercial space that you've mentioned.
Right.
And so in a place like, for the next couple of years, you could build a building on a street like Portland Street in my district, a main street that we want to continue to be the center spine of the community. Commercial on the ground floor is not going to be required because of the province's standards over the next couple of years. And I think that's really not a good thing for the long term. The building you build is going to be there for decades.
Councillor Purdy?
Yeah, I would agree with Sam on this one as well. To not be able to, well, I mean, it's not that they are not able to. Developers can still put commercial space in, but it's not a requirement for the next couple of years. So, I think we all know that to be able to have market, space, stores, ability to, not have to drive somewhere to get your milk or your bread or your coffee is always a good thing.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues right after this break. right, welcome back. This is Councillors on the Hot Seat in the studio. District 5 Councillor Sam Austin on the phone with us today from District 4. That's Trish Purdy. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go to the telephones and welcome Gary to the show. Gary, how are you?
Not bad. Sam.
Hi, Gary.
Hi. I'd like to know about the 13th station there. You heard any rumors they're going to shut that down?
No. You're talking King Street, right? That's Station 13, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard any rumors. I know the building isn't in the best of condition. Like, we've got a whole collection of aging infrastructure out there, and King Street Station would be amongst them. The brick has seen better days, that's for sure.
Yeah, it needs a lot of work down there. And I hope I don't want to see that station ever closed down because that's all downtown.
Yeah, I don't know what the fire department doesn't have, to my knowledge anyway, whenever I've talked to them. They don't have a current, long-term plan for, any kind of station changes or anything. We are sitting on a chunk of property up at the corner of Portland Street and Green Village Road, just up the way. That is owned by the city and was always identified as a future fire station. But we've been sitting on that land for about 20 years now, so I don't know if there'll ever be a project there or not.
Yeah, because it'd be nice to keep that station there, And then, I go over a lot of times. I go over to help them out or need something done. Or I live in Nantucket there. We always take sweets and everything over to the boys over there.
Oh, that's very kind of you.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I don't. There's no plan that I'm aware of. No one's run anything by me on that. We wait to see. I know the fire department has some work to do in the future, of course, on that station because it is aging out. The challenge the municipality has is we have a lot of stuff that's aging out. I was just thinking I'm sitting in here in studio and a half block away is the Forum, which is practically falling over. So it is the challenge that we face because all our stuff is pretty much built at the same time after the Second World War and is all coming due at the same time.
Thanks for the call, Gary. Appreciate it. You mentioned the Forum, Sam. Of course, that is part of the budget discussions that are ongoing. Do you think that given today's economy and the bank account of the city, is that building going to get saved?
Well, I don't think we really have a choice, right? That's one thing you can decide not to do new stuff. So you can put off things that do we really need to build that new rec center? Do we need to build that new road? You can put off the new stuff. It's pretty hard to put off something that you currently own that's literally falling apart around you, which is what the Forum is in, right? A bunch of us on council had a tour there the other day, and that building is in really sorry shape, and we depend on the multi-purpose space that's there. We depend on the ice rinks. So I don't know that we have much of a choice.
Councillor Purdy, your thoughts on the Forum?
Yeah, I think I would happen to agree with Sam on this one as well, because it is one of our assets. It is one of our oldest buildings. And it is in very poor shape to the point of even perhaps posing public safety hazards if certain conditions arise, like ice and snow. And I know bricks were falling out of the walls a couple of years ago that had to be mitigated. So, and if nothing is done, it's going to cost millions and millions to upkeep it. So our assets, really, our aging assets do need some TLC and some help. It's just one of the things that the municipality has to do.
Councillor Austin, is it create the situation to become that much more difficult, being that building is listed, right? It's a heritage building, and would there ever be a scenario where it's too far gone beyond repair to, if we have to spend $100 million to fix this thing, and would it ever come to that?
I could. I mean, I think the heritage piece is often on this one has become a bit of a red herring. This is $100-some-odd million project because it is 2 ice surfaces. It is multi-purpose space. It's a big project. That's why it's cost a whole whack of money. When staff have done analysis of this in the past, when they've come to council, it's been clear that the heritage component, it's not nothing, right? It's several millions of dollars if you wanted to do a really heritage-friendly project there versus, one that is, say, more invasive. But you're talking 5-10% of the budget. So it's not insignificant, but it doesn't change that this is a big project just because this is what building a new arena. It's not just ice, it's the stands, it's the community space. This is what this kind of thing costs.
Opponents of the forum will tell me that it is likely cheaper to knock that existing building down and perhaps build one of those 4 pads that we saw that was built out in Dartmouth. Your thoughts on that? Yeah,
it would be. So that would, knock the price down, maybe 10% sort of thing. You're still going to be $100-some-odd million project.
Right. Councillor Purdy, money well spent?
Well, we have high demand in the municipality for ice surface. It's community space as well, also high demand, and it is I think it's a necessary thing.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's squeeze a call in here before we take the break. Michael, how are you?
I'm great. Oh, you hear me fine?
Got you loud and clear. Your question, please.
I had a question. Before the MAC, I know we're having trouble with traffic, and before the MAC Pass system was removed from the bridges, was there any discussion of starting a congestion tolling system for Peninsula Halifax?
Start with you, Councillor Austin.
There's never been any official discussion of that I'm aware of. It's kind of something that there's been chatter about in the past. We basically already had a congestion toll for the Dartmouth side anyway, going across the bridge tolls. But the direction around tolling in this province, which isn't something the municipality controls, is the exact opposite. I would suggest that there's no appetite at the provincial level at this time for congestion pricing.
I mean, it's no longer a new concept. There's a city very similar to Halifax. Stockholm implemented it 20 years ago.
New York's done it.
There was a lot of public opposition to it. Pardon?
I said New York has recently done it, and the results there, it's thinned out traffic to improved air quality. I mean, it's a policy that's not necessarily popular, but depending what your objective is, it can work.
Well, no, I disagree with that. It's never popular when you're proposing because, sometimes bad medicine doesn't taste good. But in Stockholm, if you read through it, they love it. And as someone who runs a company, guess what I would pay to cross the bridge at 4 p.m.? What do you think I'd pay?
I don't know what you'd pay. I think you could answer that.
If you get 2 guys you're paying in a truck, you'd pay about $25 to cross the bridge. I'd pay $30. And when we removed the MAC Pass, we actually could have expanded it, to the Quinpool Rotary to Joe Howe. And we could have actually put in time-of-day use, and it's very effective. I think it's something we should have looked at before we removed all the MAC Pass system. So
I would agree with you that removing the tolls, it's not something that council had any say in. And personally, I think it was a silly decision that will come back to bite later, especially as we look at maintenance and having to build a new McKay.
Thanks for the call, Michael. We're up against the break. Some are saying, Councillor Austin, that it's even contributing to the congestion problem now that there's
traffic volumes. There was a story the CBC had on from the Bridge Commission. Fewer accidents, which is good, but also volumes up 10%, which absolutely tracks with what you'd expect in the academic literature, where other places have looked at these kind of questions. What happens when you remove tolls? Once something becomes free, you get more use of it.
Councillor Purdy, any thoughts?
Well, on the one hand, it's nice not to pay the toll, but on the other hand, I wonder where these 10% are coming from. If you don't have to go to Halifax, why would you go to Halifax? I don't understand that.
We're going to take a break.
It's me, Trish. I'm just driving loops all day. Go over the McDonald and come back on the McKay.
Only you, Sam.
We're gonna take a break here on Councillors on the Hot Seat. We'll continue on the other side of the news. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the update. All right, welcome back. This is Councillors on the Hot Seat in the studio, District 5, Dartmouth Centre. Councillor Sam Austin on the phone with us today. From District 4, Cole Harbour, Preston, Westphal, Cherrybrook, that's Trish Purdy. If you have a question for our two councillors, lots of lines open, folks, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Before the break, we were talking a little bit about traffic congestion. And, of course, last week, the province announcing that it's going to collaborate with HRM to do another traffic congestion study, a 2-year study, as I understand it. I'm interested. I know that traffic and mobility certainly have been discussion points for both of our guests today. And we'll start with you on the phone, Councillor Purdy. Your thoughts on another congestion study, this time with the province leading the way, I guess?
Yeah. Yes, that seems to be the case. Well, I think it's needed. I think they also what we saw they want to kind of concentrate on truck traffic from the port too. I guess the congestion is, it's bad. Gosh, a couple of weeks ago, it took me almost an hour to get on Roby Street from Yonge Street down to about Quinpool. It was just crawling on the one lane of traffic. So they must be hearing concerns from residents and not seeing any solution in the near to medium term. So I know it's a growing city, lots of car traffic, and need big improvements in transit reliability. And so there's a lot of issues right now. So I guess we'll see what this study brings.
Councillor Austin?
Yeah, we'll see. There's many a study has been done over the years. I can tell you the inconvenient truth of it all is we don't have more room for roads, right? So we have three choices. We use what we have more efficiently. And so there's some things around that could apply to vehicles, like, signal timing and getting a modern traffic kind of management system like some other cities do that we don't. But really, at the end of the day, any study that's not looking at transit and active transportation, like that's the only solution we have, right? We need less car traffic, right? If we continue to grow population-wise and have the same splits that we do now in terms of transit ridership, in terms of bikes, in terms of people walking, and all these new residents are driving, we're just heading for a world of hurt. So we know what we need to do. It's a question of how do we do it and how do we pay for it, right? Because if we were to build out our bus rapid transit plan, we're talking like $1 billion, basically. A very effective idea, put high quality transit within, a walking distance of a third of the municipal population and through all the major employment centers. But money that the city doesn't have that we need the province and feds to ante up.
In conversation with the minister last week on the program, it sounded to me like he was taking a look at congestion and some of the engineering issues that we're having. And one of them, of course, being active transportation and bike lanes, Sam. I know, and we've talked about bike lanes, you and I, many times on this show. Is that something that you are willing to look at to ease congestion?
Well, first you'd have to show me the example of the bike lane being a problem, right? So you think about our major traffic pinch points, McDonald Bridge, McKay, Armdale, Rotary, Windsor Street Exchange. Just what bikes are jamming that up?
Fair point.
Right, there's so much political swirl and ideological stuff playing to people's, baser emotions on this topic. It's really distressing. I haven't seen a lot of leadership here from the province on this. More just pandering has been the name of the game for a little while. So hopefully this study will, kind of refocus us, get away from some of the politics and refocus on what the actual solutions are.
Councillor Purdy?
Well, my views on bike lanes are pretty well known. I thought that we should have and could have taken a sober second look at how we're engineering the bike lanes. Are there ways to do active transportation that's not quite so expensive, that doesn't actually remove traffic lanes on our road system? So I guess we'll see what the study. We'll see what they come back with solutions, and go from there, I guess.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We welcome Gloria to the program. Gloria, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, Dan. Thanks for taking my call. Good morning, councillors.
Morning, Gloria.
Well,
Good morning.
Well, councillors, I understand the pay raise went through without any open discussion in council.
No, we didn't.
right.
There was no discussion of the pay raise. It's
No.
set by a formula.
I understand the formula. In other times, people probably wouldn't have noticed this. But in the time, I just heard rents are higher in Nova Scotia than anywhere in Canada. Heard that on the news. Power rates are due to go up. Water rates, taxes, and now a salary increase for council. And as Catherine Morse tossed it off as being very little money, I think it would have been a big thing if council had felt it in their hearts or souls or whatever to consider what people are going through. And I expected somebody like you, Councillor Purdy, Councillor Gillis, Councillor Young, or Nancy Steele to stand up and talk about this. I'm very, very not happy that nobody did that. Nobody saw fit to stand up and set the stage and talk about seniors are not getting any big raise, probably nothing. And if they are, medications are going up too. So I just say, shame, shame. You know, do you know what percentile you are in salaries in Nova Scotia? Does anybody know that?
It would be the top
Yes,
chunk at least.
Pardon?
Maybe top 10%.
Top
It's just
10.
a guess.
75% of the percentile, that's where you are. You're with the crowd that makes 75% more. And you know what some people are making. You know how many people are making the wage that you get working at a fast food place, and how they're struggling. So I'm really disappointed, I have to tell you that. In another time, in another age, probably nobody would have even noticed you getting that raise. But today, people are really looking at it. And I must say, the ones I talk to are very disappointed. So anyway, folks, have a Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Gloria. 902-405-6000,
Dan, if I could respond.
Sure, absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Sure. So, I mean, the salary piece, it's set by formula, but man, for something that's supposed to be a little bit arm's length, I think I've talked about it maybe 6 of the 9 years that I've been around, because there's always, no matter what the formula does, it always spits out a number that, for one reason or another, people don't like. Council's tweaked the formula a couple of times over the years. Right now, it's set basically it's the average industrial wage in Nova Scotia, so it's tied to what happens out there in the workforce. So if Nova Scotians make more money, council makes more money. There's an upper cap on it of 4%. So because there's 1 year it was going to spit out like 8%, and everyone looked at that and was like, oh, well, no, that's unreasonable. So it's set by formula. And we have tweaked it in the past. During COVID, we didn't take a raise for 2 years. And, at a certain point, right, what is the appropriate way to set politician salary? Because you can't have this being a job that doesn't have a salary, because otherwise the only people who can afford to do it are people who are independently wealthy. So I don't have the perfect answer as to how you fix that thing, but I know it's also bigger than this particular council. We want to make sure in democracy that people are able to do this from all walks of life, not just if you're independently wealthy or retired and don't need that income anymore.
Councillor Purdy?
I would agree with Sam there. I don't think any raise would go over well with some residents. I haven't heard from any of my residents in District 4 over this. The only comment I did receive was that, you've earned every cent of it. So I don't think, I mean, there's no good way to, some people think you get paid way too little, way too much. I mean, prior to this job, I made $34,000 a year. It was a very low amount, and I worked my butt off. And so I'm very thankful for the salary that we do have. And we did it. This job is a very demanding job. And the other argument for a good salary for a municipal councillor is you want to be able to attract people who who can afford to be a municipal councillor. So we want to be able to attract good people when we all decide that this is our last term, and you want someone who's going to really care and get compensated for doing a good job.
Yeah, just wanted to add too, on that point, Trish, I agree that, my experience has been, and I've known a fair number of municipal politicians now, you need a salary to make it something that people can do, right? Like you can't go home and say to your spouse, can I work for free? So you need a salary for it. The experience that I've had is most people, they can't do it without a salary, but that's not the main motivation to do a job like this. If it's just about going and making money, a lot of the folks who've been in these roles, they could go make more money with a whole lot less hassle than what they currently have now. I think our former colleague, Mr. Mason, is a good example of that, who's now, losing was maybe financially the best thing that ever happened to him, given the story in all Nova Scotia about being president over there at APTN now. So I made the mistake the other day of looking up my old job because this whole salary discussion was swirling, and I'm glad my wife doesn't listen to the show because I would have made more at my old gig.
We're going to take a break. You're listening to Councillors on the Hot Seats. We're back after this update. All right, a couple of callers on the line. We're going to try to get to as many as we can before we are done with this segment. On the phone is, of course, District 4 Councillor Trish Purdy. District 5's Sam Austin is in the studio. Let's welcome Anne to the show. Anne, how are you?
Hi, fine, thank you this morning. I was going to talk about maintenance, and I noticed that buildings run by the government do not have maintenance. And if you have a brick building, you have to have maintenance all the time on it. And the city of Winnipeg has tours of their own buildings because they've done maintenance. For instance, the power company in Winnipeg has gutted the building but left the outside the same. And so they're making quite a good profit of doing the touring of the old buildings. So the old Eaton building and everything could have been kept, up. And those buildings should be kept up and the maintenance done on them. And if you don't pay, it's like if you have a house, if you don't do the maintenance, it's going to fall apart. So it's pay me now or pay me later. And I do disagree with the aldermen having a raise. They shouldn't have it. And that's it.
Thanks, Anne. I appreciate it. Councillor Purdy, you want to respond?
Yeah, yes. Residents, very correct. Maintenance is so important, and on our older buildings especially. We see the result of sometimes the lack of that in our older buildings. So, very important asset renewal, asset management, very, very important.
Yeah, I would agree. Anne's absolutely hit the nail on the head there in terms of a challenge that we have. And over the years, I don't think the municipality has put enough money into, there's a tendency in politics at times, and I think, and just the nature of the way society is structured, right? Like, everybody likes something new, right? Like, cut that ribbon on that new project. Fixing up the old doesn't come with the same pizzazz, but it's awfully important, and people notice it when you get to the point where suddenly the old is really failing. And I think, we have finance staff who've been really spending a lot of time thinking around, we've adopted a policy over over the more recent years about trying to make sure 70% of our capital is going into state of good repair, so fixing up old stuff. But I don't know that we've entirely put enough money into this space to really deal with the fact that there's most of what we have was all built after World War II, and a lot of it is now coming due. I mean, you just look at over in Halifax Water where they're experiencing that, where all the pipes are failing all at the same time.
Right. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We'll welcome Dan to the show. Dan, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Your question for the councillors, please.
My question is kind of a rebuttal to you didn't understand how bike lanes are affecting traffic. I live in Fairview. They put that nice decorative south end sidewalk and all that project into place, and that will be a pinch point for traffic. It's construction now, but you can drive anywhere in this city in the middle of the morning or the middle of the afternoon and find yourself in a traffic jam. Now, that's new people coming in and that sort of thing. I'm not against that. But who is doing the planning so that these traffic snarls don't happen? And impinging from the sidewalks in for nicer, wider sidewalks or bike lanes instinctually is going to take away your traffic lanes. So there's no way of getting around something once something either pulls over or stops. That's my point. But I can be down on Quimple Road at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the middle of the week and be in a 50-car lineup at a light. So, that may not be bike lanes, but who's planning for these things to make sure that this runs? Because the frustration in the people is self-evident when you're out there. Courtesy is gone, and people are getting rage.
I hear lots of car
I'll
horns.
leave it at that.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, Dan's not wrong. The main source of that to me is that we've added 100,000 people in basically 8 years, over 100,000. And you can't add that kind of volume to a city and not notice it, especially when we were only like high 300,000 before that. So the city's grown tremendously fast. The plans, we do have plans for alternative transportation because that's the only solution, right? Like no one's widening Quinpool Road, demolishing like whole neighborhoods. We can't do that. So all we're left with is, we need transit to be more effective and we need more active transportation. And for the most part, other than a slip lane here and a slip lane there, which mostly would speed you up just to go sit at the next red light that you were going to get stuck behind anyway, the changes we've made have been done without removing vehicle lanes. There's very few exceptions out there of where the city's gone in and taken something out. Certainly putting in a pinch point reduces the crossing distance for pedestrians. It does slow down turning traffic in terms of how quickly they can do that. But as they would say, that's not a bug, that's a feature, right? In the urban core where there's large volumes of pedestrians, we have to think about their safety too.
But we also have a very active urban core, and I take calls from a lot of people who run commercial trucks that are using those corridors that are running into problems with no right turns and stuff that is being exacerbated by some of the new projects that are underway.
Yeah.
All right, Councillor Purdy. Sorry.
Oh, Dan, speaking my language. But we do have a beautiful city for active transportation. My dad's been in the infirmary there, the QE2, for the last few weeks, and just walk in between City Hall and the infirmary. I mean, it's beautiful at all times of the day and night. And hi, Dad. He's listening now. But I think one of the biggest frustrations for me is the IMP, and I mean it was intentionally implemented to help encourage people to shift their mode of transportation to more active or transit, like to get people out of their cars. So a lot of the intentionality behind the planning of our streets is to do just that. And so when you combine that with a huge influx of population, lots more vehicles on the road, and not really bringing up the transit to be a standard or a level that would be a viable alternative for folks in a lot of cases. We just have a recipe for disaster. And I think that's where we see ourselves right now, just kind of a comedy of errors. And here we are. So what can we do to help solve the problem?
Almost out of time. What's happening in District 5, Councillor Austin?
Oh, well, I mean, it's, I think people are pretty much, it's wind down for the holiday time, right? I don't have much in the way of a calendar here on out. I mean, I guess I'll just close up by wishing everyone best wishes for the holidays. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, season's greetings, and Happy New Year, because that's just around the corner. And hopefully folks will be able, if they're interested, they'll be able to take in some of the festivities over in Grand Parade on New Year's Eve.
Councillor Purdy, what's happening in District 4?
Well, I think pretty much the same. I know in the Purdy household, I'm trying to get ready for Christmas. Like, oh my goodness, work has been so busy. So now I got to start turning my head towards, oh yeah, Christmas is coming. I have to get ready. So yeah, Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. I'm planning to be at the Grand Parade for the New Year's festivities. I try to go each year. It's fun, it's exciting, and it's so good to see so many people out celebrating and happy. So yeah, Merry Christmas.
Thank you to you, Councillor Austin, to you, Councillor Purdy, and to all of our callers. Another edition of Councillors on the Hot Seat is into the history books. We're going to take a break. Blake's going to update us on what's going on in the news. And on the other side of it, it's time for the open hour. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the update. Welcome back. It's the first open hour of the week. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Lots of lines open if you want to get in and bring something to the table to kick us off as we begin. What is this? The second to last week before the holidays? It's only 10 days away. Christmas is 10 days away. Can you believe that? Where did all the time go? Anyway, just a very quick programming note, folks, just so that everybody's on board. We're going to be here all week, obviously, and for a good chunk of next week. We're going to do a Christmas Eve special here on the Todd Veinotte Show to end our year. And we're going to have some special guests. And the rumor is that Vanessa has worked her magic and has landed the jolly old elf himself. That rhymes. I'm a poet, didn't even know it. Anyway, the jolly old elf himself, Santa Claus, will be stopping by on the 24th. So I know many of you will be off, and maybe you'll be with your children or with your grandchildren. And if they want to get a last-minute request into to Santa, we're going to connect up with him while he's flying around. Like, it's the 2025 edition of Letters to Santa, right? We're going to be able to talk to him on the sleigh. So if you have some kids around, or maybe you want to call Santa and ask for something, I know I've got a long list of things that I'm looking for. We're going to do that on the 24th. Then from the 24th until the 5th, we're back on the 5th. So we're going to take a week or so off and charge up our batteries. And we'll be back with the Todd Veinotte Show in 2026, beginning on January the 5th. So I just wanted to get that out there so everybody knows what is going on. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Just a couple of emails before we rocket off into the phones. This one comes to us from Gary. It reads, Sam Austin is oblivious to think that bike lanes aren't adding to choke points. The streets are so narrow downtown, cars only funnel out of the city into the wider streets. Short bus lanes in the downtown add to the confusion. Sam's pro bikes and is willing not to get an honest answer from him. That comes to us from Gary. This one from Rob. When I hear councillors talk about budget, they frequently talk about individual projects being a small percentage of the budget. The Halifax Forum renovation, bike lanes, their 4% increase, to name a few. It's misleading at best and dishonest at worst. $110 million for a single renovation project is a small percentage of a total budget, but still a whopping amount of money. In fact, cutting that one item would keep the tax increase at zero. Anyone who has had to wrestle with budget cuts knows that large number is made up of many smaller numbers. If we have any chance of keeping the tax increase near zero, many of these supposedly insignificant items will need to be cut. And that comes to us from Rob. The Halifax Forum is certainly a thorny topic. And the reason why I say that is there are a good chunk of you out there that want that just to tear it down and redevelop that land or build a 4-pad on that site because of this $110 million price tag. But the city's in a bit of a tight spot when it comes to that project. It's designated. It's a historical building. So I would imagine that tearing it down would be an option of last resort. Somebody with working knowledge of these designations of these historic sites may enlighten me on this, but is my understanding that because it's designated, there's a lot more protections in place for a building like that. But if you listen to what Councillor Purdy had to say, bricks are falling out of it. It's in danger of falling over, and it could be a multi-million-dollar project just to stop that from happening. So it's a thorny subject, and I know that many of you support the Forum and you want to see it stay there because of its historic value and all the things that have happened there and the big hockey games, the big concerts, and everything else that have happened at the Halifax Forum. But it certainly is going to be a cash-intensive project, to say the least. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Dave.
Yes, hello, Dan. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure. What's on your mind?
Imagine riding a bike out there today. Can't see it.
Actually,
Can't
you know
see
what?
it,
I will say that I was driving in this morning and I did see somebody riding a bicycle. I did.
Well, then they're kooky. I'm sorry. But, I mean, you know what? We get months of this, and right. We're long overdue for a nasty winter, which I'm sort of predicting in my own way here. But it's funny how things work. Dry summer and, obviously people aren't going to be riding bikes. I mean, the average person, 6 months of the year here, let's face it, you go from November and April, if you're lucky, is half decent. Just saying. And when it comes to council, if you don't mind me talking about that, I don't begrudge people for the amount of money they make. Let's also not forget they probably get quite a benefits package as well, right? Like most government jobs. You're going to get a lot of benefits as well, which is a big cost. Anything federal, anything government is you're getting some nice benefits. And a lot of these council folks can work up the ladder. I mean, look at Mike Savage, right? He was the mayor. He has now got the highest position in Nova Scotia as being the lieutenant governor, if I'm not mistaken.
An MP before that, too, don't forget.
An MP. So it's all part of the game. But I'm wondering, where is our population growth coming from? And I'm not being smart here or whatever, but in 8 years, we've increased 100,000 people, right? That's a tremendous population growth. Now, it's not a birth rate, I don't think, here in Nova Scotia, because I think Canadians just are not having...
There's no doubt it's immigration.
It's immigration.
Yeah, and that's from away and interprovincial as well. It's both.
And we're getting some people, because I talk to folks that have come in here from Ontario, yep. And we're living in one of the most expensive provinces in the country, if I'm not mistaken. That I have learned in the last several years I've been here. So we have to know as studies go, and I'm not being smart here or whatever, but this population growth has swelled due to immigration. And then when you're looking at also our services, such as healthcare, I think you have a year waiting list to get an operation. That was just on your news story last week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And we're right up there to about a year. And I'm of which one of them. I haven't even had a phone call for something that's not very serious, fortunately. But this is the predicament that we're in. Now, when it comes to council, anybody can run for council. And if you hustle and you get out there and door knock and whatever. But we need the smartest. We need whips in there. We need the smartest people that can make some half-decent decisions, including the mayor, which I'm quite pleased with at this point in time. Not just somebody that hustled out there and knocked on doors that don't really sound like they're that smart, to be quite honest with you, some of them. And we need the brightest brains in this city to basically develop our city. And right now, the way things are going, like bike lanes, there's a fine example, and you just brought up the Forum. Now, if that's a heritage building, it has to remain that way. I get that. And you may have to put some money into that. But as far as people history there, I went there for whatever, it was so nice and whatever. And, I get that thing. But, I think with the bike lanes, like I said, $100 million for bike lanes, are you kidding me? We can put that in other areas, I think, that are needed much more important than bike lanes. I get the idea. As our city grows, we have to have niceties, and people want to move here because we have some of these things. But, I think we need smart people in there, and I'm not so sure, to be quite honest with you. No, I don't know if I'd want to be a council. I don't know if I'd want to be in politics myself. There's a lot of pressure. You get a lot of, whatever. But, I think you need some smart, intelligent decisions. And right now, I just don't see that. And people are hurting out there, Dan. People are hurting out there.
There's no doubt, Dave. I agree with you. Yep.
Thank you, Dan, for taking my call. I appreciate that. Cheers.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. It is a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job. You don't have a weekend. You have a limited vacation time. And no matter what decision you make, you're going to upset somebody. It is not, if that was a job description for any other job in the planet, you would have very few people that apply for it, even at $130,000 or whatever it is a year. That's not an excuse for taking a 4% pay raise in a time of fiscal restraint. That, I think, is the optics are awfully bad on that. But you work nonstop. Your phone rings nonstop. If there's a snowstorm like there was yesterday, you're fielding calls from morning until night, and sometimes into the night. And a good chunk of the people that call you are going to be upset. Nobody's going to call you to tell you that you're doing a great job. Just think about that, and if that was your daily job, would you want to do it? To Dave's point, I agree that we need smart people, but I think we also need grassroots people with some common sense, people with some working knowledge of how things work from a layman's perspective or a layperson's perspective. I think a mix on council is important. But accepting a 4% increase in salary when we're looking at a 10.5% increase in tax, and folks, it's getting worse from here. Double-digit increases for the next 4 years predicted, and probably out past that. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Back after the break. Welcome back. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. That's the way you access the program. That's the way you get on here and share your opinions every day, and we do it every day here. This is the first one of the week, so I would imagine a couple days worth of things that maybe have been stirring in your soul that you want to share with us. Here's an opportunity to do just that. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Morning, Len.
Good morning, Dan.
What's on your mind today, sir?
I'd like to just correct myself. About a few weeks ago, I think I mentioned that the salaries of the councillors was around $200,000. Well, I didn't really mean it was $200,000. I like to correct myself, and I know that they get a little bit over $100,000 a year.
You're correct.
And they also get another almost $100,000 to spend any way they want towards their charities and their own, constituents. That's over 2 million. How many councillors do we have, Dan? About 26, 25?
16 in the mayor.
Well, when you count $100,000 for each one of those, that's $2.5 million right there. That should be eliminated. And when any money is given to any part of the constituents, it should be voted on by the by the committee. Now, the other thing that the councillors do make as far as money goes, I think they get a lot of extra money on all the committees that they sit on, if I'm not mistaken, the meetings that they have to go, that they're on.
So I understand that's a per diem so that they can eat and do those kind of things.
Yeah. The other thing is, I was surprised that not even one of them this morning would say to the people of Halifax, yes, I'm willing to not take this increase in my salary. Well, not one of them even mentioned that, but just every one of them really were saying, yes, we want that increase. And where's their charity, for God's sake? Most of the people in council, correct me if I'm wrong, are retired individuals from other jobs that they've had and are getting pensions already.
I'm going to say about half.
Yeah, well, there you go. And half of them are getting pensions from their other jobs, probably, and good pensions. And then they're getting a salary. So they're making a hell of a good amount of money every year compared to some people are. And so for them to at least say, yes, we don't want to take that increase this year, wouldn't that be so nice to hear somebody say that and have a little charity towards the people of Halifax that are making minimum wage? Some people are making $20,000, $25,000 a year. How do you live on that kind of stuff? They sure would wish that they were making $100,000 a year like the councillors are, and plus. Anyway, have a good day and Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Len. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I'm not making $100,000. I don't know if there's anybody out there that would be upset at making $100,000. We know the way the formula works. Well, we've got an understanding the way the formula works. It's based on, as Councillor Austin said, it's an industrial wage, whatever else. But wouldn't it be something if we could tack on some of these? The buzzword is called key performance indicators, KPIs. That's the way that I get I get assessed every year. It's the same way that Vanessa gets assessed every year, even though Vanessa is a rock star and knocks every KPI out of the planet. But we all have benchmarks to be measured by. And as I was going through my preparations today, I wrote down some KPIs, and I'm interested to see what you think about this. Key performance indicator: in order to get their raise each year, council should increase revenues by 5%, increase the city revenue by 5% each year, outside of taxes. Improve transit reliability by 5% each year. Right? That's on-time performance. And keep tax increases, not rates, not tax increases. The money that you and I sign over to the city every day, or every day, well, close enough, every year, to CPI. Hit those three benchmarks, get a raise. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. What do you think of that, Jim?
I think you're dead on. I think it's a performance issue, but I just got two topics there, Dan, if I may.
Sure.
It seems to be, listening to the councillors over many years and the last two today, is that they fail to recognize that the bike lane issue goes beyond reality. We need some bike lanes, yeah, okay. But as far as long-term thinking goes, just drive around. I'm sitting in a parking lot now, and it's full of cars. I go to another parking lot, and that's full of cars. I go to the doctor, that parking lot's full of cars. Cars are the most common mode of transportation and will continue to be in this city, all the cities in this area. And, the buses would be nice, yeah, okay. But really, they're focused on the savage years in council that just destroyed the economy by spending millions of dollars on these future bike lanes. Savage once said himself he'd make Halifax the biking capital of the world. Well, guess what, Mike? You screwed up. Anyway, just go around and look what people are using for transportation. Whether they're going to be gasoline, diesel, or electric, they're not going away. And so they got to sit back and say, we got to look at this. The mayor should look at this and say enough is enough. And I'm not so sure he's big on the bike lanes anyway. And the second one I'd like to say is in regards to wages. When you run for councillor or get elected or do your community work, most people do it on a volunteer basis, but the council happens to get paid. But they also have an extreme privilege of having voicemail, which they use a lot. I'm sure a lot of your listeners will call in and say, I sent numerous emails and never got a response. I'm one of them. And you get a chance to talk to them on the radio and corner them. So they have a lot of ways of, recognizing those calls, and they don't have to return them, even though they should. So, that's a poor excuse. You get elected as a councillor, do your job, cry me a river, get over it. Yes, it's going to be busy. So I guess my big issue today, though, are the bike lane strategy that Councillor Austin said too, and Councillor Sean out there in the West End. Listen, just look around, and reality is the car is here to stay. That's it, Dan.
Have a good one, Jim.
Yeah, take care.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The open hour continues after the news. All right, welcome back. Open hour continues. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. A couple of emails before we go back to the phone lines. This one comes to us from David. It reads, Dan, you make a councillor's job sound like pure hell. If it were really as bad as you make it out to be, I doubt we'd have so many councillors who want to serve multiple terms. It's a great job with great pay, lots of perks, so let's stop the pity party for HRM councillors. And that comes to us from David. I will suggest that there's a reason why we see the majority, not all, but the majority of councillors leave after 2 terms. And not to suggest they don't know what they're getting into. Don't get me wrong. I mean, everybody knows that a councillor is on call 24/7. That's the gig, right? And you should know what you're getting into when you put your name onto that ballot. But that being said, it's an intensive term. Many councillors and former councillors have told me that it's almost nonstop, particularly on days like today when we have had some adverse weather and there's snow plowing going on and there's budget debates and there's talk about salary increases and so on and so forth. Jim hit the nail on the head, though. They do have the voicemail and they're able to hide behind that for a while, as are many other executives around the world. I can tell you of many that are like that. And Colin writes, hey, Dad, never heard anything so ridiculous as to turn down a raise. Would you turn down a raise if Rogers had offered it to you? No, thanks. I make enough. It's ludicrous. Are members of council somehow immune to the rising cost of living? I think not. Just because we don't like people who work for the public doesn't somehow mean that they shouldn't suffer to serve. $100,000 a year isn't what it used to be. They're doing a job like anyone else, and the remuneration, I always have trouble saying that, remuneration reflects the burden of the position. Thank you kindly, it says, and that is Colin. That being said, Colin, I don't get to vote on my own raise. I don't get to set the formula that puts my raise together. I don't think there's a person listening to this radio station today that would turn down a raise in the private sector. But when you vote to pass your own increase and you're looking to find savings in every facet, wouldn't it be safe to say that could be one of the line items that you look at? I'm just saying. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Denise to the program. Denise, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. How are you?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
I have an idea, and I'm interested in what your opinion of it is on feasibility. Okay, what I would like to see is HRM build a central rehab facility for substance abusers so we can help these people be trained in what they're interested in, possibly to get off social welfare services, eliminate policing, eliminate emergency services, time and expense, and just do something with the situation, because it's growing worse, not only in HRM, but also in the northern and southern areas. So you can't, my idea is you can't force people to go into a rehab facility. But what you can do is make it attractive so they will want to go and stay there. So I don't know if, I think NIMBY is in the way here. People won't want it built. But if you could centralize the job skills training, the mental health services, and help these people to get through their addiction issues, because they so many of them don't have any luck doing it on their own. And accessing provincial health services, mental health services, is very difficult to somebody who is already dealing with a substance abuse. Now, what do you think? Is this possible, or is this a pipe dream?
Well, I mean, on paper, Denise, it makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of those services are available, but you're right; they're sometimes difficult to access, and to put all of them under the same roof would make a lot of sense, and make them in a centralized location, and to make them available. I think it would make a lot of sense. If they don't already exist, they already may. I think that. When the outreach workers go into the encampments, they offer a lot of services to people, and a majority of them take them. But there's still a chunk of the unhoused population out there that don't. And you're right, you can't force people into that.
If they could be housed in an attractive to them, or I'm not saying that it would be acceptable by everybody, but a reasonably attractive, clean establishment where they could get together and have social opportunities. Many of them have lost a lot of their social skills because they've been through so much. How does one make a proposal to HRM? Do you show up at a council meeting, or?
I'd start with a conversation with your counselor.
Good idea.
All right, Denise, have a good one. Thank you.
Thanks.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I don't know if it already exists, and maybe it does, but having outside-the-box thinking, I say it here a lot, is something I think that we need to focus on and that we should encourage, because the current situation is less than effective, I will say. Let's go back to the phone lines and welcome David to the show. David, how are you?
Hi, Dan. Yeah, I was going to talk about the forum, but I guess councillors' pay increases. I mean, one thing that's different from you and me is that it's an annual increase. And as they referenced in the open segment there, it's also based off of the industrial wage in Nova Scotia. So, electricians, carpenters, tradespeople are in short supply, and their wages are rising faster than the rate of inflation because there's essentially a bidding war to be able to access the services that they provide. So, but because of that, and the formula that's used, the municipal councillors wages are also going up. So that sort of says nothing in terms of the scarcity of, councillors or their cost of living or anything like that. So, I don't know. It's a difficult question, for sure. There's definitely both sides. But anyway, I wanted to talk about the Halifax Forum. I live in the North End, so the Halifax Forum's been a big part of my life, just sort of, the services provides, the events it's hosted and stuff like that. But also the, tremendous history that surrounds that place and the acts that have, performed there. But I definitely do question the cost, $110 million or something of that. But I guess as far as I'm aware, that what they're kind of proposing is a redevelopment. So it's not just a sort of renovation or fixing the place up. It's sort of, putting in new things and changing things and doing all kinds of stuff like that. So I wonder what would the cost be just to sort of fix it up, just to maintain it, to keep it in a functional kind of state. And I also wonder too, what if they took a sort of phased in approach for that, sort of, 1 year, okay, well now we're going to work on the brickwork. And then, in another phase, they're going to do the interior or something like that. So
and then, David, I often ask the question, if they're going to do an extensive redo inside, they're going to keep the facade, right, or whatever they do, and they essentially gut it from the studded walls to the studded, or the brick walls to the brick walls. Then is it the same building anymore? And the reason why people hold the forum near and dear is A, the ice surfaces, but B, you said some of the acts and some of the history that's happened there. Is that even the same building anymore?
Yeah, well, that's it. There's I forget what it's called, but it's an old philosophical thing, dating back to the ancient Greeks, and it was about sort of one of this mythological ships or something like that. And I forget who it sailed by, but it's sort of, basically, this one sort of kingdom had the shift for ever and ever and ever, so that every single piece of wood and every single bolt and every sort of, piece of cloth was replaced. And is it the same ship or not? And it's kind of a thing. But I guess for me, one thing I would say with the history is here in the North End, the city doesn't really seem to do much with the tremendous amount of history that we have. So sort of with the tourism, it's come to the downtown and the waterfronts. And I mean, those places are great, I guess, but there's really so much more to this city. So I mean, in terms of the history of the forum and the acts that have played there, maybe it's a chance to kind of bring people up to this part of the town. And there's also so much more to see here as well, too, which I just did write out a short little list, and there's lots of things on it. But, I won't really bother repeating unless you want me to. So, I don't know. But definitely it's a feature of the community and provides a lot of services. And then that's not even talking about this sort of ice surface. And, I've never gone to see a hockey game there or anything like that. But I mean, there's hockey's played there and kids and all that kind of stuff too. Right. So it serves its purpose. But do we really need an extensive, one of these world-class redevelopments that they're always kind of after, or should we just, fix it up and maintain it? Because like I said, I haven't been in the arena in, decades, but I'm in the multi-purpose rooms all the time, and I certainly don't get the feeling of being in a dangerous, dilapidated building that's about to collapse around me. It's just, it's a functional, institutional, big open space where, they set up tables and stuff like that. So, I mean, nothing in terms of, grandiose architecture, but it seems functional enough to me and whatever. So,
thanks, David.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Dan.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're going to take another break. Open hour continues on the other side. This is the Todd Veinotte Show. We're back in minutes. Often say that we have some of the smartest people on the planet that listen to this show, and David was talking about the ship of Theseus when we were talking about how much is replaced until it's not the original thing. That comes to us from Richard. Richard, I appreciate it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello again, Gloria.
Don't want to be hogging your show, Dan.
I appreciate it.
I just want to call and give you my feeling, having served for 23 and a half years as alderman, mayor, and councillor. I loved every day of it,
right,
Dan. There was never a day that I felt, what am I doing here? The big thing when you go in this job, you have to have a good work ethic. And if you have that work ethic, you look after your calls every day, you look after your emails every day, and you deal with the people the way they expect you to be dealt with. And it's a great job. I ran when I was 81, Dan, and I campaigned 9,000 doors. And I would have run again in 85. I know, not bragging. I know I would have been reelected, but I wouldn't because if I got ill,
right,
it was a $270,000 by-election. So, it's and now they have somebody working for them in the councillor's office. That person did very little for me because I wanted to do my own work. So it's not the job, Dan, you're painting it to be. When I was there, I had 27,456 constituents. Mm-hmm. Today, there's 31,000, and most of those are from new apartment buildings,
right,
where you get very few calls. So for anybody who's ambitious with a good work ethic and you like people and you want to do a good job, it's the best job you could have.
Gloria, before we let you go, was it your experience as a counselor that you worked every day, 7 days a week?
Exactly. I took calls 11 o'clock at night.
Right.
You can ask my constituents. And I answered their emails and their phone calls.
And I
loved it. I loved it.
And I'll bet you about, 80% of your calls were people that were upset about something?
Well, they wanted me to help them. Every day when I'm out there, I run into people who tell me what I did for them.
Right.
You know?
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
what you're there for.
For sure.
And it's a great job. And I love people, and I loved it. And I wish I was still there.
Gloria, as always, our pleasure.
Thanks, Dan.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. So she said that I was portraying it wrong, but I think all that I said was that your phone rings 7 days a week, you have emails to answer 7 days a week, and that the majority of the people that are calling you are upset about something. That's all I said. It takes a certain person, and somebody sent us an email here very quickly. Where is it here? There it is. It comes from Ken. It says, quoting you, "We need honest people, dedicated people to run for office." Okay, Dan, when are you and Vanessa going to run for office? LOL. Ken, I appreciate it, and you're not the first to suggest that. I have absolutely no ambition to run for political office. I'm just not the person that can go 24/7, 7 days a week. I'm just not. I need to have a break here and there. And besides, Vanessa and I have too much fun sitting here talking to you all every day. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Sheldon.
Hi, Dan. I just wanted to a lot of people seem to be missing the message from council. And even Jim, when he called, and I know he's connected to the city, the plan for Halifax is less cars. Halifax Council is moving to get cars off of the streets. The speed bumps, the curb push-outs, the no right turn on red, bike lanes, bus lanes, that's all designed to have less cars in the city. I live in the South End, and the thing is, it's very clear, and our councillors said it today, the plan is for less cars. So you're going to have less cars in the core. Sean Cleary talks about a toll on your show in the past.
Yep.
We have to accept it. There's going to be less cars. There's going to be more bike lanes, more bus lanes. Now, the city has done a terrible job giving people like me an alternative. So what I've done is I had 6 deliveries come to my house on Saturday. I'm not challenging the traffic, and that's what's happening. So by default, we're probably creating more traffic. But the plan, and everybody needs to know it, listen to it, and accept it, is Halifax is going to have less cars on the road. Doesn't matter how much the population grows. The city is moving towards, and if you can't see that when you drive around Halifax, you're missing something.
Thanks, Sheldon. I'll respectfully disagree. I think that and I think you touched on it, Sheldon, I think that until we have a viable alternative, I'm going to suggest we're going to see more cars in HRM. Because why in the heck would I get out of my car? To go and sit on a bus that I don't know if it's going to show up. I don't know if I'm going to get to my appointment on time. I don't know if I'm going to be safe on it. Or a bike lane. I'm looking out at a flurry right now. Now, we're going to get to 7 and 8 and 13 degrees today, so this is probably a moot point. But we get weather here. And yes, we have hills. And yeah, I know the argument is, well, they got the electric bikes. Well, those aren't cheap. And I know that my vehicle's not cheap, but I already have it. So what's getting me out of my vehicle? I'd ride the bus every single day. If it was, number 1, safe. Number 2, on time. And number 3, affordable. The affordability piece, I think, is handled now. I don't think that the bus fares now are outrageous. But it isn't reliable. And I'm hearing more and more stories from drivers and from people that take transit every day that it's becoming less and less safe. So why would I get out of my car? If we build these rapid transit lanes that we're talking about, and let's not kid anybody here. We're talking like billions, B with a B, to get that done. That might take care of the on-time performance, but is it safe? I've asked council before if there's any interest in putting together a HRP has said they're not interested in riding the buses. So do we create a transit authority that polices the buses and makes them safe? And run 24 hours a day. Right? There's a number of you that are listening to the show right now that have to be at work at 6 o'clock in the morning and live in the outlying areas, and you cannot make that work. You can't. And then you don't know if you're going to get there because it gets stuck in traffic. I get it. Chicken and the egg. I get it. But to say that, well, we're going to see less cars, I doubt it. Until we have a viable alternative. I think that it will be a cold day in HRM if anybody here is going to accept a congestion tax to keep cars out of the downtown core. How does that work for the transit, or how does that work for the ports? How does that work for the hospitals? You're gonna pay a tax to take your loved one to the ER. I don't think that'll go over well. But we need to have an alternative. But we need to have a viable alternative. And I don't think that active transportation is that viable alternative, at least at this point. Thanks to you all who picked up the phone, dialed the numbers, and joined the program. Oh, very quickly, before I go, I got an email from Paul. Says, good morning, Dan. I'm wondering how the snow clearing was in your area because First Lake and Sackville Drive was a mess. Saturday, I saw one plow on First Lake and never saw one again. Is this what we're getting this year? One drive-by of snow clearing? Well, I'm looking out the windows. I've been here for a long time today. I came in early, and I'm looking out the windows, and the side streets in the downtown core are clear. I'm not sure if that was plowing or salt. It was probably a combination of both. And I'm looking across Robie Street, and I'm seeing that the sidewalk plow has even been by. So to answer your question, Paul, it looks okay from here, but I would imagine that because of the high volume of traffic here, that is why. Again, thank you to each and every one of you who dialed the numbers and joined the program. I truly appreciate it when you do so. Blake's going to update us on what's going on in the news. And when we come back, we've talked about migrant workers in the past here on the show. And now there's a new report out there that is raising concerns about the human rights of women migrant workers in Nova Scotia. The executive director for the Centre for Migrant Workers' Rights, Nova Scotia, is Stacey Gomez. And Stacey will be our guest when we return. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Aalders. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back as we roll along here on a Monday. It's one of those Nova Scotia days out there, isn't it? There's sun and there's flurries all at the same time. One of our callers in the open hour said that didn't see a lot of bicyclists out on the bike lanes today, and he was not wrong. I don't see a lot of bicyclists out, but and that this happens from November until April, I think the caller said, but we're looking at some temperatures the end of this week that are looking kind of nice, right? 8 degrees, 9 degrees, maybe even 13 degrees by the end of the week. That might see some cyclists out on the road. And I understand the point. I do. And I get it, that we have weather here. But this roller coaster that we're on here weather-wise is quite bizarre. We're going to connect up with Allister Aalders here in just a few minutes' time to get a look back at the storm that was and the weather that will be, if that makes any sense. As we look at a brown Christmas, perhaps. Now, if you're living in places like Cape Breton and in parts of Cumberland and Colchester counties, I'm going to suggest that you're probably going to have a white Christmas. But here in HRM, if this forecast holds true, I think we may struggle to see white on the ground for Christmas Day. But, hey, it's 10 days out yet, right? So let's not count our chickens, as they say, when we move forward. We're waiting to connect up with our next guest here. It gives me an opportunity to read a couple of emails that we didn't get to as part of the open hour. We were talking about council remuneration. I have trouble with that word. And somebody called up and mentioned that they get salary plus they get a community fund, which is true. and that they get extra money for the committees that they're on. Councillor Hensby reached out to me during the news and said that's not entirely true. HRM councillors don't get any per diems or honorariums for committee or commission service. Honorariums from the Bridge Commission and Water Commission goes to the council office budget to pay for our meals at City Hall. That way we don't have to submit receipts. And that from Councillor Hensby. Also, we were talking about the cars. I think it was Sheldon that called and was talking about it's the fact that we're going to see less cars. It's council's push to have less cars in downtown HRM, and I said that I disagreed with that, and that I think that we're probably going to see more cars until we come up with a viable alternative. Dan wrote me and said, Dan, the caller was making that the point that it is the agenda of council to rid the peninsula of cars. No one besides council thinks it's a good idea. You'll see less cars because they'll make it extremely unpleasant place to venture with your car, i.e., no parking, bottlenecks, traffic jams. And that from Dan. I still think, Dan, and I take your point, but I still think that we're going to see more cars just based on the population and some of the services that we need to access on the peninsula that require us to drive because there is no alternative arrangement. We're already seeing that parking issue, to your point, Dan. We're also seeing that parking issue right now within Nova Scotia Health, particularly at the QE2 and at the VG, at the infirmary, where there's a lack of parking spaces, right? I've had, for the last little while, to take someone to the VG for several appointments, and it's to the point now where I will not even attempt to park at the VG. I'm lucky enough that the person that I'm taking there is ambulatory and can walk, so I drop them off, and then actually I come back to the radio station, and then I go pick them up. So to that point, I agree with you, Dan, and if it gets to the point that council pushes to remove cars from the downtown core by putting on congestion tax, I think is the proper terminology for that. You think there's been opposition to bike lanes. Try that one. And then I go back to say, what happens if I'm going to the infirmary or I'm going to the VG or I'm going somewhere else downtown and I have to go to? Do I pay that tax? Anyway, appreciate the email. We're talking about the Halifax Forum as well. And I said, there's two schools of thought with the Halifax Forum. One, that it's a historic building, and it is, and should be preserved for its historical value and for some of the services that it provides, right? It has those multi-use rooms that we've all been to, the shows and the fairs and everything else in there. It's got those ice surfaces in there that are well used. But Councillor Austin telling us that he has in there last week, and it's in a bad state of repair. So we're looking at doing an extensive renovation to the interior of that building. And if we take the guts out of it, and it's a shell, is it still the Forum? Lee writes, you're right. Would it truly still be the Forum? The kind of like the current Blue Nose 2, which is a copy of a copy. It should really be the Blue Nose 3. People, I would suggest, remember the Forum not for its architecture and not for its historical significance that it's been there for all those years. They remember the events that happened inside the building, right? The concerts, the wrestling matches, the hockey games that they've been to there. And if we completely gut that thing and make it new from the bricks in, is it still the same building? And is it cheaper to demolish it? And I know it's historical, but is it cheaper to demolish the building and build a new, like, 4-pad center there, where we double the rink space on the same footprint? We know that there's a shortage of ice. Councillor Purdy talked about that during Councillors on the Hot Seat today. There is, and anybody that is involved in any kind of skating event will tell you that there is a shortage of ice surface in HRM, without a doubt. Would that be a better use of the space? That's all I'm saying. Well, it looks like our guest is a no-show, so what we're going to do here is we're going to take another break. And then when we come back, we're going to connect up with our newly minted meteorologist. That's hard to say. Newly minted meteorologist Allister Aalders. A look back at the storm that was, the weather that will be. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. Back in minutes. You know, I bet you our next guest, when he finished all of his education and got the letters at the back end of his name, thought, all right, now I can cruise. I'm a meteorologist. But nope, putting him to work today. Hello, Meteorologist Aalders.
Hello, Dan. Good afternoon. And just quickly want to say thank you to all the listeners of this show and this radio station for their kind words after the big announcement on Friday. Truly appreciate it. And happy to be here today on a not as snowy as it was earlier in the day, Monday afternoon. And
a lot less schoolwork to do now, I imagine.
It's it's like what do I do with my time? Well, I guess perfect timing for forecasting winter weather. I guess at least it frees me up to do that.
Fair enough. Allister, let's look back. I mean, we're still seeing flurries here in the downtown core, and I'm looking across the harbor out of the windows here at the Rig House studio, and I'm having trouble seeing Woodside and seeing Dartmouth. So there's still flurries in the air. Are we done now with this system here in HRM?
For the most part, I mean, as you mentioned, still some flurries in the air, and it wasn't super fluffy snow, but not, I think, as you mentioned off the top of the show this morning, not that back-breaking heart attack snow. So because the winds have also picked up, we're seeing some of that snow blowing around. Still some flurries on the go, though, as you mentioned. And as we go throughout the rest of the afternoon towards the evening, generally those flurries will start to taper off. Now, of course, people are listening not just in Halifax, but in parts of the north and east where the main weather associated with the system itself has pretty much wrapped up, but what's happening behind the system is with the colder air and the stronger winds, we have onshore snow squalls developing once again. So through parts of Cumberland, Colchester, Pictou, Antigonish, and then into Cape Breton, while the main precipitation associated with the low is moving out, we're now seeing those return snow squalls. So those locations will continue to see some variable weather conditions because, as we've talked about, snow squalls are so localized, but additional accumulations with some blowing and drifting snow throughout the rest of the afternoon, gradually improving throughout the night tonight for most, although for parts of the North Shore and then especially northern and western Cape Breton, the onshore snow likely to continue into Tuesday and slowly winds down throughout the day on Tuesday. But here in Halifax, just some of these flurries that will be sticking around but gradually tapering off throughout the afternoon.
Do we have any early stats, Allister, as to accumulation amounts in different regions?
Yeah, so at the airport, 18 centimeters reported on the ground there. That's one of the higher totals I've been able to find from, the volunteer reports that come in on the Coco Ross network. Generally 8 to 12 centimeters in the metro area, a few pockets upwards of 15 to 18 centimeters outside of the city center. So in general, it was about around a 10 centimeter event, give or take a few centimeters depending on where you are. And then for most of the province, it was about a 5 to 15 centimeter event, some 15 centimeter totals, the interior of the South Shore through central and eastern Nova Scotia. Parts of Cape Breton where they held on to the rain quite a bit longer through Sydney and along the coast of Richmond County. They didn't have a lot of snow to begin with, but they've been seeing some snow now, so they're seeing about 5 to upwards of 10 centimeters depending on where you are along that coastline in Cape Breton. But generally 5 to 15 centimeters with some pockets that are higher. And obviously with these return snow squalls through the north and east today, some additional accumulations are expected, which will in some cases bring totals in the range of 20 to possibly upwards of 40 centimeters, with those highest amounts expected in western and northern Cape Breton, which, on North Mountain, where they've had snow squalls, we've talked about the last few weeks, the North Mountain weather station's up to 50 centimeters total on the ground. So they're getting their fair share of snow in the Cape Breton Highlands for sure.
Looks like White Christmas there. I know you said last week that you'll make your Christmas prediction on Friday, so we won't spoil that now. All of that being said, Allister, it looks like, in my limited knowledge of the weather, that we're in for a warm-up here in the municipality in the next couple of days.
We are. So we have, it's chilly out there today. It will be chilly tonight. I think what we need to remember is that, 2 degrees above freezing is where we should be for this time of year. And, today we are well below the freezing mark. We will be below the freezing mark again tomorrow. But we're starting to see some milder air move across the continent, and those outbreaks of colder air masses sinking to the south and east will become a bit more confined to the north. We're also going to see a ridge of high pressure setting up off the Atlantic coast, so a southerly flow mid to late week, and that means a bump up in temperature. So starting Wednesday, really 7 degrees above the freezing mark Wednesday. Weak cold front Wednesday night with a few showers, but it doesn't really bring in another blast of Arctic air. 5 degrees on Thursday, sunshine, and then we surge up to 12 degrees by Friday. That does come with a bit more weather, some later day rain and some strong winds, possibly upwards or in excess of 90 kilometers per hour. So it does turn a bit blustery in terms of rain and wind later Friday. And then we do see another drop in temperature Friday night to Saturday, although that's looking short-lived, with another warm-up coming in for Sunday with perhaps a few more showers. And then obviously we're starting to creep a little closer to Christmas, which, we can certainly talk about. But I think the bottom line is, with the warm-up coming, certainly warmer temperatures, which some may welcome, given it has been a bit of a colder month on average. But the snow that we have on the ground right now is not going to be sticking around, because it will be, temperatures well above freezing for several days, coupled with, the rain. It's going to certainly lead to most of the province seeing their snow melting by the end of the week, which a bit unfortunate if you're, a fan of the snow at this time of year, because it does add to, the Christmas and festive spirit.
I'll ask those same people that question when they shovel their driveways today.
Yeah, it was. I was out shoveling mine earlier this morning, and it was. It wasn't too bad, because, as like you said earlier, it wasn't that backbreaking snow, but
right.
it was like the wind whips up and the snow's blowing in your face, and I was just thinking, I was like, okay, can we have summer weather again, please?
Well, you're the meteorologist, Allister. You can make that happen, can't you?
Oh, apparently, that's what people have been telling me. They're saying now that I am certified, I can apparently make it sunny all the time and bring back the warm weather.
There's a little bit of rain that's at least in some of the forecasting I'm seeing towards the end of the week. Is that anything to be concerned about?
Well, obviously it will depend on how much melting we see before that, because obviously we're above freezing Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. The rain on Friday doesn't look to be significant amounts, 10 to 20 millimeters, but obviously with the snow on the ground and the ground, at least partially frozen, we could see some issues with runoff. But I do think we will see quite a bit of that snow melting before it arrives. But I would say, obviously, while it's not looking to be a significant amount of rain, we certainly obviously need to keep in mind that because there could be some steadier and heavier bands of rain associated with this weather, that we could be seeing, not quite, possibly some localized flooding, but at least some runoff, and definitely some pooling where that rain has more trouble running off.
Allister, as always, my friend, a pleasure, and we of course will hear from you again on Friday, and you're going to come to us with a prediction on whether or not we're going to have a white Christmas or not.
Yes, I was taking an early look, and I know we don't put a lot of stock in anything beyond 7 days in the weather world. I will say it's probably going to come down to the wire around Christmas Eve. So that's your tease. Tune in on Friday at 12:30 for the official White Christmas prediction.
You're good at this radio thing.
I try sometimes, right?
All right. Thank you, Allister.
Thanks, Dan. Have a good day.
That is our meteorologist, Allister Aalders. Oh, now I'm curious. I'm going to have to do some digging to see if we're going to see a brown or a white Christmas this time around. If memory serves me, I think last Christmas we had a snowfall Christmas Eve, or was that the year before? Anyway, no, it was recently that we did have a white Christmas, but there was a series of brown ones that led up to that. So time will only tell, and you'll have to stick around on Friday when Allister comes back to tell us a little bit about the white versus brown Christmas, the eternal question. We're going to take a break, get an update on the news, and when we come back, a year-end conversation. Yep, it's that time of year again with the leader of the official opposition in Nova Scotia, NDP leader Claudia Chender will be joining the show for the next 30 minutes to talk to us a little bit about what we can expect in 2026, the year that was, the year that will be, and maybe she'll tell us a little bit about the Christmas traditions in the Chender household. All of that and more when we have a conversation with the leader of the NDP in Nova Scotia, Claudia Chender, after the update. Welcome back into hour number 3 of the Monday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm glad you're able to spend a few minutes with us on a snowy Monday as we look forward to what Allister was talking about before the break and a little bit of a warm-up. I know that put a smile onto Vanessa Vandenez's face when we were talking about 6 and 8 and maybe even 13 degrees by the end of the week. It is Nova Scotia, folks. It is December, right? We've gone from like minus 13 to double digits on the positive side. It's a bit wild, but it's why we live here, right? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That's the number because I'm getting a ton of emails from y'all from our discussion earlier today. I'm looking forward to you writing that number down and joining the conversation tomorrow when we do the open hour at 11 o'clock, and we can carry on the conversation, and I'm looking very much forward to it. Been looking forward to this next interview for some time since we started to put the wheels in motion to make it all happen. It's getting to the end of the year, and that means it's time for us to do some year-enders, as we call them in the business, year-end wrap-up interviews with the newsmakers. We're going to bring you a bunch of these as we move closer toward Christmas and, of course, the Christmas break and then into January. Very pleased to kick off this segment for us, the leader of the official opposition in Nova Scotia, the leader of the province's New Democrats. That is Claudia Chender. Claudia, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Dan?
I am well. You shoveling this morning?
Well, you know what? I was out super early to take my daughter to an appointment. We kind of risked our lives, but we got there, and I left the shoveling to my husband.
There you go. That's right. Delegate and disappear. That's good leadership right there.
That's right.
Right?
Sometimes at home it has to be, unfortunately.
No doubt. I imagine you have a pretty busy schedule.
We sure do.
All right. It's been a year. Oh, my goodness. 2025 is almost over. And there have been a lot of things that have crept up onto the radar during this year. If you had to describe 2025 in one word, how would you describe
it? Surprising. I mean, a year ago, if you, particularly in our world, if you think about the political landscape, things have really shifted. But also, I think people thought things were going to get better. And so maybe disappointing is the corollary to that. I think it's, I think people felt like we were in a moment and the tariff conversation, and then there was an election and we were elbows up and things were going to get better. Certainly, our election was fought largely on things like affordability, but here we are and things are still really expensive, and I think it's people are still looking for the light at the end of the tunnel.
Claudia, it's the year end, and in the corporate world, in the world that I live in, we're doing our self-evaluations, right? We have to do this as part of the yearly thing. If you were to self-evaluate yourself, what kind of performance review would you give Claudia Chender?
Well, listen, I show up as the kind of point of a really big team, and so I would say I would give our team an A. I think the fact that we're not all just talking about, uranium and critical minerals, but are actually talking about the debacle that's Nova Scotia Power and the cost of groceries and the challenge of rents, that's heavy lifting by our team to remind this government what's important to people and what people think about at the end of the day when they come home or at the end of the month when they have to pay the bills. So I would give my team a great mark.
I think I know the answer to this next question. Conversely, if you were to be a teacher and give Premier Houston a letter grade, what grade would you give him?
Well, I bet his PowerPoints would be really well designed, and his science fair project, maybe with help from his mom, would look really good and shiny.
Right.
So certainly he'd get some points for that. But probably I'd be one of those English teachers writing in red pen that there's some content and narrative connection missing. So I think, really what we see is a lot of rhetoric, and it doesn't really meet the reality. We see a lot of videos and social media and announcements talking about how great things are. But when I travel from one end of this province to the other, I hear a different story. I mean, Nova Scotia is great, and people are always going to make the best of things, and hopefully people are going to have a great holiday season. But there's some real issues. I think Nova Scotia Power is really top of mind right now that we need to address, and I don't think that the Premier and his team have done a good job of that.
Claudia, if you were the Premier today and you were to hold Nova Scotia Power to account for the cyber attack and this overestimating of bills and its reliability, what would you do to hold them to account?
Well, I think the very first thing that this government should be doing, and that we would certainly do, is to give customers some relief. So, whether there's lots of confusion about billing right now, but many people are just going and paying those bills no matter what. We have been calling for a rebate on those bills. But on a broader sense, we've had legislation on the books for a long time that details exactly what we would do. We would create real privacy protections for Nova Scotians, which still don't exist in the wake of this data breach that has led to a lot of the challenges we're having now. We would ensure that Nova Scotia Power actually works for us. So we would do an ownership review. We would look at, how this company operates, whether that ownership structure works, whether their ownership of the grid works, right? We lose power all the time. Dartmouth was out earlier this week. I think big parts of Halifax were out yesterday. That's ridiculous. We need some serious reform, and there's lots of things that need to be done. Number one, though, customers need relief. And what they don't need is, political leaders getting, chastising the company in public. They need action. They need their politicians to really do a hard thing, which is to reform the way that we get power and to make sure that it's affordable and reliable and green. We've got climate targets to meet. And so far, this government continues to fail on all those fronts.
Claudia, you mentioned ownership. It's at the end of the day, it's a private company that owns Nova Scotia Power. Is there a mechanism in the contract between Emera and Nova Scotia Power and the province that can be reviewed, or is it locked in?
Well, that's something that, the details of that the government would be privy to. But at the end of the day, I mean, companies can always be bought and sold, and so can pieces of those companies. We know that Nova Scotia Power is not a particularly profitable subsidiary of Emera. They make their money in Florida. But what we're not saying we need to take Nova Scotia Power back right away. What we're saying is in 1992, the Progressive Conservative government of the day sold this company without any economic analysis. And we are saying it's time to do that economic analysis. So, 30 years later, it's not too late. Let's actually look at our value for money. Let's understand how this utility is or isn't serving us. And when we're talking at a national level about things like building our generation capacity and having more interprovincial connections, we're building a big intertie with New Brunswick. Right now, none of that, power that the Premier's off in Paris talking to people about is going to be able to be used by Nova Scotians because our grid can't handle it. And that grid is owned by Nova Scotia Power. So let's talk about whether that makes sense. Let's talk about whether it makes sense maybe just for us to own the distribution. We're just saying, let's do the hard thing. Let's look at it. Let's understand what's actually in the best interest for Nova Scotians, because the Premier made himself the Minister of Energy, and our energy situation is a mess. And so it's time that this government took the bull by the horns and started trying to fix it.
Premier travels a lot, doesn't he?
Sure does.
He's in Paris this week, right?
Yep. Paris, Boston, Denmark.
Is there value for money in these trips, do you think?
Well, we don't get a lot of information about them. And, we're not going to know whether all of this rhetoric around being in, energy and critical minerals is going to pan out until long after Tim Houston is gone from office. So I don't know. But what I do know is that it's not paying off for the thousands of people that we hear from who are asking what this government's doing about the price of housing, right, or what this government is doing about Nova Scotia Power's overbilling. There are it's not like everything's hunky-dory at home. So, let's take a few international jaunts and see if we can drum up business. If what he's doing is trying to create jobs, well, we need jobs. But in the meantime, he's starving our universities, which create a lot of economic activity in our province. We're not paying attention to the jobs that already exist. And I would say that, the challenges we're having around housing affordability are going to make this a difficult environment for companies to set up. So, we would certainly like to see the Premier paying a little bit more attention to what's happening here on the ground at home.
Claudia, we're going to take a break. Can you stick around to the other side?
Absolutely.
All right. We'll continue our conversation with NDP leader Claudia Chender right after this break.